Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Cranked and Ranked. I don't, that's all I got. No.
Pretty
this
chill
is,
intro.
yeah, this is a podcast slash YouTube show where we rank band discographies and really just have super long discussions about music. We're ranking a band discography today, but if you're new to this, because I know there's a lot of big fans of this band, if you're new to us, we talk a lot and we bring our own personal biases and opinions and history and experience into what we do. And sometimes there's some crazy shit that we talk about that has nothing to do with the music. But at the end of the day, it is I mean, people like it. It's a nice discussion about music. Probably a lengthier and more carefully thought out discussion on music than you're going to get pretty much anywhere else. So, and I'm Old Head, and with me as always is Eddie Sparxx.
That's me. That's me right there. You can see I'm on the screen right there. That's where I am.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. We're both on the screen. Before we begin, I want to give a little plug to I've made a few friends over on the app AMP where I do radio shows, which is about to be available on Android. And so that's one step closer to making it worldwide. So,
Nice.
but it's basically where I do a radio show. I'm able to like play music and do intros and outros, and I have a blast. And other people do it too. But two of the people, a husband and wife duo who also do shows, they have a coffee company called Against the Grind Coffee. And
Hey.
I'm drinking this one today. It's the Take the Power Back blend. And it's character notes say brown sugar, roasted nuts, and citrus. And so yeah, I wanted to give them a plug because I'm a coffee drinker, but I've been real lazy about my coffee up until recently, where I literally am just going and buying the little pods, and I had a Keurig machine, and I didn't even bother to try like different kinds. I got like breakfast blend. And I would put it in, and that was my coffee every day.
Boom.
I've always wanted to like branch out and try different coffee. And so the fact that two really cool people that I know started their own coffee company, I'm like, well, fuck, this is how I'm going to begin. So and I'm not being sponsored. I paid for this, but portions of all of their sales go towards nonprofits that they support. So that's really good too. So Against the Grind, I think it's againstthegrindco.com. If you want to like order, I don't know if they do worldwide, but it's good coffee, and I want to give them some props. I love it that they started this company, and I'm enjoying the coffee so far. So
Very nice.
yeah. So moving on, yeah. If in one day, that's what it'll sound like one day when we have an actual sponsor, and we're all like, is your wallet getting in the way of things? Try this new wallet. That'll be
Wow. New print. Little. Yellow. Different.
It's like people do things just because they get paid, and that's just really sad. So all right, I'm sorry. We're gonna annoy. Not we. I'm going to annoy the Dream Theater fans. Today's Dream Theater Part 1. Because Dream Theater had 15 studio albums and one EP that Eddie had me listen to as well. I don't know anything about Dream Theater fans because Eddie's, I think, the only one I know. But I have a feeling a lot of them take themselves very seriously. But I might be wrong. We don't take ourselves very seriously.
No.
But I do feel like, I have to start before we go anywhere into Dream Theater. I have to say that I'm sorry, Dream Theater fans. That's all I want to say. I'm very sorry And I
This is gonna be a good
just,
one.
I just, I'm just gonna go throw it out there that like I am. You're not going to like me, okay? By any at any point in this episode, um, yeah, you're not going to like me. So I, I don't know. I don't know any other way to begin that. Normally, we start things off with how did we come in contact with the band the very first time, and mine was way back in was it 92 when Images and
Probably.
Words came out,
Yeah.
and the Pull Me Under music video was on MTV, and I saw it
Hmm.
and I was like, it's pretty good. And it never took me any further into the band. And any other music videos I saw by them, I didn't like. So
Hmm.
I never moved any further. But over the years, I've known random people here and there that have been like, oh, Dream Theater. And I'm just like, okay. And I remember hearing random songs. Like I don't even remember whose car I was in. This is how long ago it was and how fucked up my brain is. But they were like, just listen to this one song. And they're playing the song, and I'm like, I mean, yeah, these guys are really talented. They're like, listen to the drums. I'm like, the drums are really good. Is this the song's not that good? It's like everything else about it is really good. Like I'm just like, fuck, these guys are good. Maybe get people to write your songs for you. I don't know. But I'll go more in depth because, like, I do have to say that I do think that um, for fans of this kind of thing, because I'm not a prog fan for the most part.
Hmm.
Because saying that I'm a huge fan of Rush doesn't mean I'm a fan of prog. It means I'm a fan of Rush. And there's random
Yeah.
other sort of proggish bands that I like. But the kind of thing that Dream Theater do, let's go ahead and draw the line right here. It's already the kind of stuff that it just doesn't connect with me. So we'll take that, take everything I say with a grain of salt because no disrespect is meant because they're clearly a fucking great band who have earned the respect and admiration that they have. Um, but yeah, so now this is my first deep dive because I realized that before this episode, the only two albums I had heard all the way through were Images and Words, a long time ago,
Hmm.
and recently A View from the Top of the World because we reviewed it on Old Bollocks.
Ah. Yep.
So I had heard both of those albums, so an early one and a later one. So I had an idea going into this what I was going to get. But I listened to all the albums from beginning to end
Chronologically, I'd assume.
chronologically,
Okay.
and yeah, that's all I'm going to say right now. I feel like I've just blown my wad. Everyone that's like a big Dream Theater fan is already turned off, unless they're wanting to see how you come at this. And I think you're going to have a lot more excitement with you for your shit because you're a fan of Dream Theater.
I am. Yeah. Yeah. I've always like I don't know what it is. For me, and to anyone out there, I want to specify. I have this weird thing in my head where somehow I've always thought of Dream Theater and Toto as like they could tour together. It's weird because Toto are equally incredible like session players, right? And
Yes,
they could play this stuff if they wanted to.
sure.
It just so happens that Dream Theater play a louder, heavier version of, you know, um rock tinged AOR-ish at points and
Yeah.
but there's metal in there too. Um
I'm glad that you brought up Toto because I'll kind of use them in sort of stating my case for some of these things later on. So
mm,
because we did Toto already,
yep.
and I had a very good time doing Toto. In
Yeah.
fact, I'm a fan of. I would say I'm a fan not of all their stuff, but like every single album had something on it where I was like, hell yeah, that's great.
I
So
would say I would say to any Dream Theater fan listening to this, check out Toto's deep cuts, and I would say to any Toto fan, check out Dream Theater and their big songs because we could we could potentially create the wildest tour matchup that somehow makes sense. But that being said, you
so
know,
when did you first hear them?
for me, Dream Theater was one of the bands that somehow managed to make its way onto an iPod that I
Oh,
had
yeah.
because my uncle had a CD lying around.
Was it one of the heavy iPods or was it one of the thinner ones that was later?
I had an iPod Nano that was 8 GB that I thought would totally hold all of the music that I know about. My naive 11-year-old ass thinking that 8 GB was all I'd need for all the music I like, and now I
Yeah.
realize 8 gigs wouldn't even hold all of the Metallica I have on my iPod, let alone everything else. But like, holy shit, like I gradually just kept getting bigger and bigger iPods until eventually phones just took over doing that.
Yep.
But yeah, really for me it was a case of I had Systematic Chaos on this little iPod, and I
Hmm.
listened to it, and for the first time I was like, oh, so this is what progressive means, like long songs, lots of different parts, incredible musicianship.
Yeah.
And it just kind of like, they were a band that I had like one album of, heard stuff, liked it, and
Yeah.
didn't deep dive because I was too busy with thrash and then grunge. But then all of a sudden something happened where I was like, I walked into HMV and I'd been like reading ranking lists or something on, trying to get into more bands because I'd kind of bled the well dry of thrash and grunge at the time. So I was like, hey, give me something a little different.
Yeah.
And I went in and I picked up the CD of Images and Words. And the first time I listened to it, I was blown away. Fucking loved it.
Hmm.
Absolutely adored it.
Yeah.
A few weeks or months down the line, I walked back in there and I saw they had one of those like 5 CD album bundle packs. And I was
Yeah.
like, oh shit, I'll be buying the same album again, but I'm getting four others for 12 quid. So I thought, I'd be stupid not to get it. So I got it. And that had Images and Words, Awake, Falling into Infinity, Scenes from a Memory, Metropolis Part 2, and Train of Thought on it. It didn't have 6 Degrees of Inner Turbulence on it because that's a double album. It would be too much of a ball ache. But that being said, that 5 album pack, just like I binge listened it, and it was just like over and over and over again until I was like, okay, these 5 albums are cool. Well, these 4 albums I really, really like, and this one I like a little bit.
Oh, okay.
So,
All right. So
yeah,
go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off there.
that's all right. Yeah, so since then, Dream Theater have come out with 3 more albums. Wait, no, 4 more albums since I got into them, and
Hmm.
with that, I think we can lead off with, well,
Yeah.
you've already told us yours, so we might as well start.
Yeah, yeah. So it's gonna be these will be. I'll wait till we get to my thing to really explain what I went through listening to these. So yeah. So we're doing the bottom half. So we've decided to do the bottom 7 albums, and then next time will be the top 8 albums.
Yes.
And so, as usual, I let Eddie start it off. And so this is really going to be kind of the Eddie Sparxx show.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm kind of leading the way on this one.
And I'll get into more detail about why it really is going to be your show once I get to my bottom pick. So
Okay.
so let's do it. Let's start off with number 15. What is your number 15 Dream Theater album?
Okay, so my number 15 Dream Theater album is The Astonishing from 2016.
Okay.
And my reason for this is not because I don't like it, because I actually, when it came out with the really dorky box set, which had like a model of the robot on the front, like everything in there is just super dorky, and I ate that shit up because I was like, oh, I love that. Let's
Yeah.
go over the top. It's got like a screenplay of the entire like dialogue of the thing. It's basically
Because it's a concept album.
it's a concept album, and it's basically 2112 stretched out to 2 hours and 10 minutes. And it's when I say that, it's pretty much that. It's like a dystopian future where music has ceased to exist, and someone's discovered it and they're bringing it back. But again, like I say,
You've literally just explained one of the reasons why I don't like Dream Theater.
and,
It's just like, oh, I've never heard that before.
yeah, it's I understand and I respect what they were trying to do with it. I know they wanted to do something mega, something capacious, something kajunga.
Oh, I mean, yeah,
But
it's like you. I mean, I'll. This is what I'm going to say. This, and this is how much you're gonna. It's going to make sense to you because you were here for this episode, and if you've watched the episode I'm talking about, I think Nostradamus is a way better album than this album. Like, and I
yeah.
thought Nostradamus was pretty awful. Even
Hmm.
now that I've become a Judas Priest fan, I still like went back to listen to some songs and I was like, for fuck's sake. Um, but that being said, I give them some prompts because they're like, well, fuck, we want to do something huge. This is
Yeah.
kind of an interesting subject. Whereas like Dream Theater is like, hey, let's do a concept album. What concepts do we have? I don't fucking know. I like 2112. That's literally like that was the end of the discussion. The meeting was adjourned.
It's pretty much like when Hollywood grabs a classic movie and does a remake. Um,
Yeah.
but
So this is the 2000s version of Point Break where
well, yeah,
they screwed the pooch.
you kind of missed the point. Yeah, it's for me though. Like, there's songs on this, right? Of the 34 tracks,
Mhm.
right? This is a long fucking album. And here's the thing, right? I like it. I can appreciate the effort that went into all of it, Gift of Music, uh, where is it? Our New World. There are cool songs on this, but
Mhm.
I can never take my mind off of the thought that 2112 accomplishes this in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's because of the way it's laid out, it's such a commitment that it almost feels like the Netflix series adaptation of the classic movie 2112, where it's like you you see what I mean, where they've like
It's
stretched
like
it to a 10 episode season,
yeah.
and it's like I didn't need to have all this extra stuff here. It's just I like it. Again, I like all Dream Theater albums
Sure.
because to me the lesser Dream Theater albums are still Dream Theater albums, but
Yeah,
from
I mean,
yeah.
I think I should go on record by saying I am fully fucking aware that even the worst Dream Theater album, I could never in my wildest dreams make anything like that. Like I'm relatively talented in the kind of stuff that I've done in the past, and musically speaking, I have had a lot of experience. But
These
that's
guys
the
are
one.
Berkeley graduates, though.
That's the one
That's the
thing is that
difference.
like even at my lowest points during their discography where I was so burnt out, I would still hear things and go fuck, but they're so fucking talented. Like there's
Yeah.
just and they do always throw in something here and there. So like that's what I'm saying. Like I would be like, so how long is this fucking album? Oh my god! And then I would immediately go ooh, and
Yeah.
then and then I would go oh. But every single album has plenty of ooh on it. So like it's such a bizarre. We'll get to that. You can tell I have a lot going on in my head after listening to Dream Theater.
You know what I think is funny is that this album, the longest album in the Dream Theater catalog, as far as I'm aware, um, has probably the shortest average song length
Yeah,
because they have albums that are like 6 songs and it comes to an hour.
yeah,
Whereas like this is what's the longest song on here? 7 minutes 40. So like
that's nothing.
that's nothing compared to some of the
Metallica has songs longer
epics.
than that.
Yeah, it's
Newer ones.
but yeah, it's I like the way it's laid out. But there is simply too much stuff here for me to give it a casual listen. This
Yeah,
is
yeah,
something I give a spin like once every 2 to 3 years, just as like yep, I remember when that came out.
yeah.
That was, that delivered on what it wanted to do, but I could have saved myself an hour and 50 minutes by listening to 2112. So, I appreciate the vision and respect the effort it took. However, something had to come last,
Yeah.
and as a result of its bloated scope, it found itself weighing itself down under the weight of its own content. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. All right,
cool.
so
Over to you. Let's hear
that
some.
that one's
Yeah.
low on my list, but it's not the last one. And so the going through and listening to all of them. So I listened to over. This was done over a 4 day period.
That's
Um,
intense.
and the first day I listened to 5 albums in a row
Wow.
because I was like, I have to just fucking go in, because once I'm in, then the
Yeah.
momentum will take me, and I'm like, okay, I'm doing this. And
Dude,
plus,
props to you for that, because holy shit, there's a lot
well,
here.
yeah, I was able to do it while I was at work, because I work from home and I have a job where the majority of what I do, it's very, I know it so well, it's very kind of autopilot, and so I'm able to like listen and take notes, and then like and there's the music is just going, and a lot of times I take in music a lot better when I'm doing something.
Yeah.
When I'm doing something active, like and I'll like catch things, and I'll go, yeah. And so I did it that way. And obviously, the first one had an album that I'd already heard, so I was able to go through that and actually be like, okay, I remember a good number of these songs. But on day 4, I got to this album, the 2019 album Distance Over Time.
Oh.
And here's the thing. So I'm saying this like, really talented guys. Every single album has something on it where I go, that's fucking brilliant. But every album also has stuff where I go, that's absolute bullshit right there. It's well played bullshit. It's almost like all of their albums have badass parts that are immediately sabotaged by cheesy as fuck parts. And so I don't. It's so weird. They're such a weird band because there's several albums that start off with tracks where I go, oh, this is going to be the one. This is the one. And then like song number 2, I go, no, fuck no. And so it got to the point once I got to Distance Over Time. It's their 14th album, so we're almost to the most recent one. My only note that I wrote down was, yep, it's another Dream Theater album. That's all I wrote. Because what I learned going through this was Dream Theater write really intricate, complicated music that will, in one particular song, will take you in so many places that you're not expecting. But once you get this far down the road, the best way that I could describe it is Dream Theater, if they were artists, they are artists that just work in pointillism, but the pointillism is like a series of images that look exactly the same unless you zoom way the fuck in, and then you're like, oh, I see all the different little parts in here. But then you zoom back out and you're like, this is the same fucking picture as the other ones that they had already done. So maybe kudos to them, because if you came in on this band early, or if this is your kind of thing and you're like really big on this, then this is awesome, because I know all of the Dream Theater fans literally just go in and they pick apart like, oh, this one little part right here, they didn't do something like that before, and they're not wrong. But to somebody like me, there's too much happening to where half of the time it takes away from the actual song, where I just go, what fucking song is this? And then I look at it and I go, oh, this is the 3rd song. I thought this was still the 1st song. And so there will be great moments, and then there are moments where it's just so, I think it's because there's a little bit, it's almost like they're halfway between like a cool metal band and a metal band that would be seen at like the Renaissance Fair. It's like they're both of those kind of bands put together. And so I was struggling the whole time with like, I cannot deny that this is really good music. It's like hearing jazz. I don't ever want to listen to jazz, but I'll hear some jazz and I go, God damn, those fuckers are good. Can you turn this off? Like that's how I am. Like so it just has to do with it not being something that I don't appreciate the granular aspects of it. Whereas, to throw it on another level, if Metallica brought out a 2 hour concept album, and they were like, all right, we're putting out a concept album. It's 2 hours long, and the whole story is about this rock star that's going through all of these issues, and he has this wall, and he has to break down the wall by the end of the story. I'm such a fucking nerd for Metallica. I'd be like, fuck yeah, you're going to improve on Pink Floyd The Wall. Let's do it. So if I would take that and I would put myself in the brain of a Dream Theater fan who feels that way, and then I would go, yeah, it's fucking great. But to me, once I got to Distance Over Time, I'm really just like, there's so much great shit, but I feel like it's so bizarre that they are such a varied and talented band, but you take a step back and everything just feels like the same album over and over again. Maybe minus the first one, but even the first one has a little bit of that too. But there's one album in their discography where they went a little more straightforward. I'll get to that one. But at the end of the day, it just got to the point I was at Distance Over Time, and I was just like, I don't know what album this is. I don't know what song this is. It's way too much. And maybe this is not the kind of thing that somebody just listening to 15 albums in 4 days is going to actually grasp. But I feel like this is an important conversation because I feel like I'm a large portion of people who just don't like or don't care for Dream Theater. And then you're the other half where it connected with you. Whatever it was, it connected with you. And so I feel like it almost makes this the best episode that we ever did, because we're literally bringing two voices to the table. I'm not disrespecting you. You're not disrespecting me. This is perfect.
Yeah.
So Distance Over Time, I don't have anything else to add except for I don't remember any of it. I just remember it was a Dream Theater album and it had cool parts and lame parts, but it was very well done. So there you go.
For me, the big thing I would highlight is that from the first album up until when Mike Portnoy leaves and Mike Mangini joins, there is an evolution there. You do hear new stuff showing up.
Oh no, yeah,
stuff.
For sure.
But I will chime in and say, since Mangini joined, and this is not his fault or anything. I've just sonically, you have the odd difference, but pretty much since Dramatic Turn of Events, for the last 10 years, the 5 albums that have come out. I know The Astonishing was twice as long, but it's that thing of you do kind of expect it now. Dream Theater has a sound and a thing they do, and they're very good at doing what they do. But I would like to hear them get a little bit bolder in terms of not that I'm saying I want them to do a dubstep album like Korn did, but it's more a thing of maybe heavy it up a little, maybe see if you can do a more straightforward rock thing, see if you can. I want to see them go either one direction or the other direction, but they have a thing now that's worked for them over and over, which at a financial band level, if you can put out an album every 2 to 3 years that is going to perform, you'd be, it makes sense. But
I mean, and not to say that they're just going for the money, like it's a business now, but it is a business. Once your band gets that big, it's a business no matter what you want to say. But
that's what cost Mike Portnoy his job when he suggested a hiatus at the end of
is that what it was?
He wanted to do some other projects, and he has gone on to do lots of other projects, but it was a pretty swift okay, well, we're going to keep being Dream Theater.
But you want to know? Do you want to know how? You want to know how he wins at the end of all this? He's the only fucking member I know.
Okay,
I know who Mike Portnoy is. Everybody else in the band is curly-haired dude that plays instrument. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure some of them are bald now, but still. it's not just Dream Theater. Like we talk about like Iron Maiden. Like a lot of these bands get to a point and they're older now, and I think that you get older and you're not interested in rocking the boat or blowing people's minds with something they don't expect, because at the end of the day, you're
Yeah.
like, well, do I have fun playing the music that we play? Because I guarantee you, Dream Theater has a blast playing these songs, because I would. If I knew how to play
Mm,
these things and every night I get to get up and play this crazy shit, I'd be like, hell
yeah.
yeah, we're going to write another one of these albums, because why not? So, and the people like it. So, whatever. So, to each their own, I guess. But, and doing like what we're doing here, it does get a little bit weird, because it's just like, I don't think these are albums that are necessarily intended to be ranked. you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, it's kind of like it is a bit of a journey,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
the swaying of the path tends to even out a little bit in these, like, in the latter third of the discography.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is, so that's your number 15, Distance Over Time, yeah?
Yes. Yes. Brings us to 14.
Okay, so my number 14, strangely enough, my introduction to the band Systematic Chaos came in at number 14 for me.
Okay.
Now, I will say, when I first heard this, it blew my mind. However, as the years went by and I discovered a bunch of other Dream Theater albums that I liked a lot more than
Yeah.
this one kind of just continued to climb back down the ladder, to the point where now that I have an ear for production that I didn't have when I was 12, I can say with a pretty confident ear that this is probably my least favorite sounding Dream Theater album, because to me the production's just, it feels
Yeah.
very boxed in, feels very boxy, and that
Man,
doesn't bode well.
that's something to be said for Dream Theater right there. It's like the album that blew your mind and got you into them is number 14.
Yeah,
that's
yeah, which,
that's pretty. That says a lot.
and that's the thing, when I was listening to these albums, I found myself at Systematic Chaos thinking, oh my god, this one, it's not that it's not as good as I remember, it's just like they've done so much better than this one,
Mhm.
which, points to being a good band. But you got In the Presence of Enemies, which is, this album's bookended by a two-part epic, which is In the Presence of Enemies Part 1, and then closes with Part 2, which
Mhm.
comes to roughly a 25-minute ish piece as it stands. Forsaken is like a big old heavy ballad. Constant Motion is a cool song, but again, it's a shame that the production on this album is ass, because, like, it does not serve them to sound like they're playing in a shitty room. They need to sound like they're on a giant stage,
Yeah.
Dio level slaying dragon shit. Dark Eternal Night definitely sounds like they listened to Mudvayne and they were like, oh, we should do a riff like that. Um, and then you have Repentance. Now here's where my nerdiness is gonna show off. I've got my glasses on. This is a nerdy episode. Not that I don't have my glasses on most of the time, because by the end of the day I'm tired of having contacts in. But so we get Repentance, which is part of a 5-part saga called the 12-Step Suite, written by Mike Portnoy about his experience with the 12-step alcoholism program.
Mm-hmm.
And basically he would do like 2 to 3 steps, 3 or 4 steps per song. And I think this is the 4th one. But I think as of 6 Degrees of Inner Turbulence through to Black Clouds and Silver Linings, there's like one song in this 5-part series per album, which is a cool thing to do. And I really like that whole suite as a collective piece.
Sure.
However, this one is like the most chill and vibey of them, and it's cool, but it's not one of my favorite sections of that piece as a whole. Prophets of War for me is a clear attempt at writing a Muse song. The Ministry of Lost Souls is this huge epic track. There's a lot of emotion to this song. This one I used to listen to all the time. I love
Mm-hmm.
the hugeness of it. And then finally, you've got In the Presence of Enemies Part Two, which is another huge epic 15-minute plus track that closes out the album. And honestly, it's an album that I see it now and I like it, but it's never one I really reach for unless I'm doing a deep dive,
Mm-hmm.
which I have done this week. If there's anything I could say is that side A, I'll kind of dip in, but side B is one I don't usually find myself reaching for. But yeah, it's systematic chaos.
Yeah.
It's really well played, shittily produced in my opinion in terms of it serving the music, but it's that same thing as it's kind of like how the drum sound on Souls of Black, I think, really hinders that album at points. It's kind of boxy,
Mm-hmm.
but I still think Souls of Black is a better sounding album. Like that's testament, by the way. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's a cool album, but it's nowhere near my favorite.
All right. Well, that brings us to
Cool.
my 14, which was your 15, which is The Astonishing
Okay.
from 2016, but it's their 13th album. You get all those numbers?
Yep.
And it's it was aggravating to listen to. Once again, some great moments, sabotaged by really lame moments. Very
I
well
will
played.
say that there is a cheese factor to this album in particular.
And
And it's kind of self-aware, but yeah,
it's, to be completely honest, though, for the most part, it's not really just Dream Theater. I really think that once we crossed over into the new millennium, the idea of the concept album is just a parody of itself at this point. Like
yeah.
it really, any band, like I don't even know if I can think of a concept album that came out in the 2000s plus that I thought was any good. Or as good as it should be. Because really, like, if you think about it, you go concept album and you think of albums like 2112 and The Wall and even fucking Tommy. I'm not a fan of The Who that much, but when I was younger, I loved Tommy. Um, and so, but those are all in the 70s. Those are all 1970s
Yeah.
albums. And I think it's because that not only were was that whole thing, kind of a new idea, but there were no CDs, so the bands weren't like, oh, we can do 80 minutes of CD. Oh, this will be a double disc. Oh, so we can do 160 minutes of
Yeah.
music or whatever. And so I think those bands like Rush had the problem of you know fighting with whether or not it was going to work with an audience.
Yeah.
And so they did just one long song on one side, and it works because they cut it down, and you're not wasting a huge chunk of your life on a story that at the end of the day is something that could be written in like two sentences. And
Mm.
so I just think that with The Astonishing, it's very heavy-handed, where it I don't think I don't know. I can't imagine being like the amount of work that went into this album, because I know a lot of work of writing all the songs, arranging all the songs, all of the band getting on board and doing their own parts of the songs, lyric writing, everything down to it takes so much work. But at the end of the day, it's like I don't know. I don't know the exact. I don't have the words. It's it's just being given way too much of something, when if it was any good, they could have just done it in 45 minutes. And
Mm.
but at the same time, I'm not a fan of this music. So if you're a prog metal fan or a prog rock fan, and somebody comes to you and says, "Oh, Dream Theater's new album is however long it is, it's long as fuck," they were probably just like, "Hell yeah!" And so it's hard for me because I'm disconnected from it. So I just, it was definitely that was definitely one of the biggest examples of me thinking that we were still on one track and we were at like four tracks later, and I was just like, okay, I'm lost here. And I did my best to like listen to albums before I knew what went into it. Like, you can go to the wiki and you can read about the making of an album. But I went into it where I was like, I'm just going to listen to this as it is, and then I'll go maybe like read about what went into it and stuff. And so, but even then, I was so just like, this is just overkill. It's absolute overkill.
Yeah.
Very well done, overkill. That's my review of The Astonishing. So moving on to number 13.
Okay, so number 13 for me is the most recent entry in the catalog with View from the Top of the World.
We matched up, number 13.
Bam! And I'm going to be honest here, this is where it enters the realm of this is Dream Theater doing Dream Theater really fucking well.
Yep. Yep.
And, honestly, I would say that, my notes shitting the bed and only having, the actual song names as notes because for some reason Google Docs decided to not save what I'd written that day. So I'm going a little bit more old heads route of just getting a general vibe of the album as opposed to oh god, I'm allergic to doing this. So yeah, really I'm just gonna go overall vibe. The alien answering the call, invisible monster, sleeping giant, transcending time, awaken the master, a view from the top of the world. It's all killer stuff played really, really well, but it's that thing of I've heard him do it. The part in Sleeping Giant, that riff, like is really cool. Invisible monsters got some hooks to it. But overall, again, this is Dream Theater doing Dream Theater.
Yeah.
And it at this point that the most recent two have felt a little bit autopilot. I like one a bit more than this one, but again, it's that thing of yep, this is another Dream Theater album, and it's to me it's cool, but it's not got the things that set one apart from another for me that made my upper picks a bit more diverse. But it does have one of their 20-minute songs on here, which is a cool song, which I will say. That being said, I don't really have many notes on this one because A, the Google Doc shit the bed, and B, I'd just be saying the same shit I would be saying for a couple others. So yeah, it's cool. It's a really cool album to me personally, but over to you.
Yeah, also my number 13. It's so funny though that you going through and just reading off those song titles. I've now listened to this album 2 times all the way through at different points in time, and I don't remember what any of the songs sound like. So if that gives you any idea. So it's funny because like this was the last one that I listened to, obviously, and on my notes I wrote, the first thing I put was like, I'm enjoying this one a lot more. And then a little bit later, I wrote the note, probably because I'm just happy to be done. Because I just remember I was listening to this album and I was all like, all right, this has some good stuff. And I was like, oh, come on. This is literally because I now know that I'm done with this. And, but it's a really well done album. I don't want to repeat myself because I don't have a lot to add because it was the same thing. Cool parts, lame parts, very well done, great musicians. The one thing I can say is also the same for most of their albums. They all have really bad cover art. Like, prog cover art is the fucking worst. It's always like, there's like 2 things that seem to happen with every prog band. Number one, they take some sort of small, sort of quirky mechanical thing and make it fucking huge. So it's like, this is a slide rule, only it's going over the Grand Canyon. And then, or or naked dude. There's a naked dude somewhere, and he's floating in the air, or he's being attacked by a beam coming from something you don't know what it's coming from. I'm just it's just the worst. And that's it. That's one of the things I just want to be in the room when they are having the discussion about the cover art, because it's
Yeah.
going to be like, you know what? I think the only way we're going to do it this time is just to have two mountains with a fucking boulder in the middle of the two mountains. I'm like, okay.
all I all I can think of whenever I look at this cover art, to anybody out there who's seen the movie The Emperor's New Groove, that
I haven't. I know
the
it though.
Disney one,
Yeah.
the Disney one where Emperor Cusco gets turned into a llama, and him and Pacha the peasant have to you know go on a bit of a journey to get back to the thing and redeem himself. Well, there's a scene where they're both tied to a log, and they get stuck exactly like that rock. And I just think to myself, every time I look at that, I don't see a dude on a boulder. I see Emperor Cusco as a llama tied to a log, trying to walk back up the canyon with Pacho on the other side.
Yeah.
And again, it's a well crafted album cover, but again, it definitely speaks to that thing of, you know, prog cover art is something that I have a love hate relationship with, where it's like,
Yeah.
that's pretty, but I can tell there's an air of this is fancy music.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
but that being said, though, there's so much sameness with a lot of proggy artwork. But just to be fair, I'm also one of those people that every single new death metal album that comes out with a fucking
Yeah.
hellscape or whatever the fuck is on, I'm always like, oh, that's fucking great. But they all look like the same thing. You can get them all, so much so that there are bands that have album covers. I'm like, isn't that it's very similar to this other album cover. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's like, what's the same artist, or it's I don't know. But
Wouldn't it be funny if there was like an indie label that every band had the same cover art, and they just waited for someone to notice that there's a different squiggly logo on it?
Yeah, that's true. So it's all like, a matter of preference, because if you're the kind of person that likes this kind of art, then these album covers are fucking great. I'm not that person. I look at them and I'm just like, oh Jesus Christ, here we go. All right, moving on to number 12.
Cool. So my number 12. Now, here's an interesting one. My number 12 ended up being one I thought was going to go higher.
Mm-hmm.
But, as a result of what I know went into the making of this album, it also, despite the songwriting on it being memorable, it's also kind of tarred for me by knowing the band weren't really into it. And now that it's there, it's almost kind of tainted my ear for it. But my number 12 is Falling Into Infinity.
Okay.
And this one came out in 97 on the heel of Awake, which was the follow-up to Images and Words. Awake didn't yield the follow-up, bombast that Pull Me Under had. Pull Me Under was a massive hit, and they've got a greatest hits album that's kind of humorously called Greatest Hit and a bunch of other cool songs.
Yeah.
So that I like that they do have a sense of humor, but like,
sure,
for me though, Falling Into Infinity is kind of an outlier with their golden period for me, because it's like, when I think Dream Theater, there's a lot of, it's mostly 90s era, but this is the one 90s album that's an outlier, because it's like, it was label pressure that led to them, that they were kind of bowing to record label pressure, and they've all come out and said that, as far as I know. But they're shorter songs. There's even Desmond Child co-writes on this.
I did not know that. That's interesting.
Yeah, there's a couple Desmond Child co-wrotes, as far as I know. But yeah, they're more straightforward. They still have some long songs on it, but to me, it sounds like, it's kind of like, if I draw a comparison to another album from 1997, the album of the year by Faith No More,
Yeah.
where like what you're hearing could be another band's best album, but
Yeah.
on the flip side, you know that they're not being entirely genuine or into it.
Yeah.
Like there's an atmosphere of, I don't know if these guys are feeling this as much as they're trying to convey, but without further ado, New Millennium is a fun, funky groover. You Not Me is a Desmond Child co-write, I think. Hollow Years. Now I love Hollow Years. It's this like nice acoustic led ballad. It's a nice song. Peruvian Skies is a great song. Love this one too. Burning My Soul, I think, is underrated. Hell's Kitchen is an extension of an underrated banger. Lines in the Sand is a really cool track. Take Away My Pain is a beautiful song. Just Let Me Breathe. See, now I'm reading it, I think to myself, I like most of these songs a lot.
Yeah.
But it's just that thing of, I know that they weren't into it, and that kind of bums me out when I'm listening to it. Anna
Yeah.
Lee is a pretty ballad, and Trail of Tears is this like closing big boy. This album basically was an attempt at mainstream hit for the record company that ended up not being a mainstream hit, and bada boom, bada bing.
I'm
Into
assuming at that.
Infinity,
I'm
We're
assuming
Falling.
I'm assuming that if they had, the hindsight that they have now, it may have felt different, and they wouldn't have done that I'm trying to put myself in the head space of 1997 Dream Theater. They probably had no idea that they would become this band that has this massive following no matter what they do. So it was
Yeah.
probably that idea of like, man, all these other bands are fucking dropping like flies. We'd like to continue doing this, so maybe we'll take some record label notes and do our best. And sometimes I think that makes great albums, though. Like when you're put under pressure to do something
Out of your comfort zone.
out of your comfort zone, or sometimes I appreciate those albums because I look at the band and go, well, this isn't what they wanted to do, but this is them putting their best foot forward for this kind of thing. And yeah. So I mean, I those kind of albums are a lot more interesting for me in a discography, because I think every band has, well, most bands have some form of that album.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't remember it.
see, like I say, on any given day of the week, this list can like move around. This isn't like a permanent fixture, but like Falling Into Infinity is one of those albums that found itself lower because I have to be in the mood for it. If it was, now there could be a time a week from now where Falling Into Infinity cracks the top 8, but for me this week, I heard it and I was like, I think all the songs here are good, but it's tarred with the whole thing of, I know that they're kind of flailing right now. They're like, fuck, which way do we turn? Do we go left or do we go right? Here's mainstream success, but we lose the prog fans. Here's prog fans, but we don't have mainstream success. And it ended up they went the prog route and wrote an absolute banger of a follow-up, but we'll get to that.
Yeah.
With that said, I'm going to hand it back over to you for your number 12.
Okay, so I have a feeling this will be in the next episode for you. And I thought it would be higher up for me too, but I had never heard it before. So my number 12 is When Dream and Day Unite from 1989.
Okay.
Their debut album with Charlie Dominici on vocals.
Hey.
And he's a good singer.
Hey, up out of my head.
So this was me. I started off with this album, and it's pretty much just early stages of what they would be doing for the rest of their career, where there's some really cool parts sabotaged by cheesy parts with just a little more of an 80s sounding production to it, which I don't mind. I like that. We talk about how we do enjoy that kind of production. But the thing that I couldn't get out of my head through the whole album, and you may have had this, other people out there watching or listening, you may know. As soon as I say this scenario, you'll know what I'm talking about. you're so it might be how old you are now, or maybe Eddie, you might be this person I'm talking about, but you're not.
Okay.
You're in your late teens, early 20s, and you're at whatever job it is you're working at. And there's always that guy you work with who has a band. And
Okay.
he's like one of those guys that's on the verge of being a virtuoso. He really takes his craft seriously, and he takes his
Mm.
band seriously, and he always says, "You got to come check out my band." Then you go check out their band, and it's always just that's what this album reminds me of. You go see
Yeah.
your coworker's band, and it's always like, I don't think you guys are going to make it. But put that together
Yeah.
with a band who are clearly very talented, and
Yeah.
that's when Dream and Day unite. It's when amazing musician and really confident, not very good musician unite. And because it has that feeling of just like, I don't know. God, I wish I could wrap my head around this shit a lot easier than I did, but it really did make me feel like I remember like my very first job. There was this guy that I worked with who was a guitar player, and he was in a band, and his band was all like, it's kind of stuff. And I went to go see them, and I was just like, God, he's such a good guitar player, but this band's fucking awful. And so, but there's nothing awful about When Dream and Day Unite. It just has that vibe of coworker band.
Yeah.
Which
It's like early
at the
days.
time they were coworker band for somebody.
Yeah. Absolutely, because it's one of those albums for me that I can see why people rank it low, but I can't. I can't. Being the '80s guy I am, I
Yeah.
can't have it. I can't have it that low because it hits a lot of spots for me that, for a lot of other people that it doesn't. But
Yeah.
I love '80s cheese.
I
So
I just when the album began, I expected to like it a lot more, but
mm,
there is just sort of a not quite fully formed idea of a band in there, um, put together by really talented people
mm.
and with 80s production. I could not get into it the way that I
Well, then there
wanted
you
to.
go. That's all I
Yeah.
needed.
I couldn't get into it just because I feel like from album number one that they sabotage themselves when it comes to like simple folk like me, where I just want like a good song, and if you want to throw in some bells and whistles into that song, that's perfectly fine. But a lot of times I feel myself the momentum of a song going somewhere, and there's this build where I go, oh, and then it goes off in an area where I go, that was surprising and disappointing at the same time. So there's a lot of that with Dream Theater, but um, once again, very well done for a young band. Just fucking, and also like I couldn't help but think about Fate's Warning when I was listening to this album. Is that because
there's yeah, there's a lot of crossover.
But Fate's
Bands that
Warning is a band that, what I've heard of them, they seem like the songcraft thing might be a little more important to Fate's Warning than it is
mm,
to Dream Theater. But
yeah, there's a definite structure with some Dream Theater stuff where it's like song part, show off section,
yeah,
and I get that completely.
yeah. So, but yeah, I did enjoy it because in the beginning of it, I was just like, it's kind of cool hearing where these guys started. But yeah, there was a lot of it where I kind of giggled every once in a while during it, and so it ends up at number 12 for me.
Fair enough. Cool. So my number 11 is 2011's A Dramatic Turn of Events.
Okay, so this is the first one with the new drummer, right?
Yeah, this is the first one with Mike Mangini.
Got it. Yeah.
Um, and honestly, it's really good. To me, it's the first album with Mangini. He didn't really have a part in writing the album because they pretty much had everything written at that point.
Oh,
And they
okay.
just kind of handed it to him, and he kind of came into his own on the follow up. But A really fun thing as well, I'm going to say, for, around this time, they turned the album basically into a competition for uh, who wants to be the new drummer of Dream Theater, being as Mike Portnoy's out. And the special edition of the album comes with the DVD of, it's like a making of documentary where they're looking for a new drummer, and a bunch of like big names, in the drummer community just show up and give it a crack. And it's really cool. They haven't played Dance of Eternity, which is,
Mhm.
one of their, known for being ridiculously hard to remember all the sections
Yeah,
songs.
yeah.
And I managed long ago to figure out a few sections. And when I did, I was like, I could fucking do this. And then another section would show up and I'd be like, fuck, back to Stone Temple Pilots. Yeah. So like every time I'd get a section nailed down, I'd be like, okay, where's the next one? Fuck this. I'm putting this down and playing Nevermind from start to finish.
Yeah.
That's what I used to do. I still do it from time to time now, where I've got like a pair of ear defender headphones for like DIY and stuff like that. But
Mhm.
I'd have my AirPods on, or earbuds, but with wires on them before, when I was a kid, and I would just like put an album on, get behind the kit, and even if I couldn't play sections, I'd play like a simplified version of it. Like
Yeah,
if I
yeah.
was if I was doing like Slayer, I'd, instead of going like da, 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 with the right hand, I'd just go da, 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 because
Yeah,
I was still
yeah.
playing along to it on beat, but getting better at it because I was only like 15. But
Yeah.
that's Dream Theater for me, connected with me because I'd just become a drummer, so I was like, there's a
Yeah.
lot to dig into with this.
And I think that's a good point, because I think that, because I'm a musician, but I've always come at music as a music fan first.
Me too. Yeah.
So I think that's why, like, a lot of Dream Theater, it doesn't do it for me, because I feel like I'm looking for something that I'm using the wrong part of my brain for, or something. Um,
Yeah.
but coming at it, like, that's why I say these people are so fucking talented. So if I listen to an album and you're like, okay, we'll just focus on what this one guitar player is doing, and I'd probably just be like, God damn, it's so good. But
Yeah.
pulling myself out, I have to be honest, because I don't listen to music like that. That's something that I come to several listens down the road, because I'm all feel. So it's like, that's why there's some music that's, could be poorly produced and anybody could fucking play it, but if it's done the right way and it connects with me in the right way, I'm just like, God,
It's
this is
done its
fucking
job.
amazing. Yeah, it's done its
Yeah.
job. So I think that's the part of the disconnect for me here. So
Yeah. But like I say, I'm gonna dive into some of this stuff here because it managed to remember some of my notes. On the Backs of Angels is a cool opener. Build Me Up, Break Me Down is quite clearly designed to be the album single, and it is. Lost Not Forgotten, love the double kickage in the chorus and all the like insane parts in this. Um, This is the Life, Bridges in the Sky, Outcry, Far From Heaven, Breaking All Illusions, so cool stuff. Beneath the Surface is a nice, soft, lush acoustic ballad closer. There are some really nice soft parts on Dream Theater albums as well. Like
mm.
when they do like the ballady stuff, they're really good at it. Um,
I think that
but
that's probably when I don't really like the vocalist very much,
hmm,
on the softer
James LeBray,
things. Yeah.
yeah,
Um, he's a big reason why I don't like some of the stuff. Because he's a good singer, but I think his style is not something that I really like. I almost feel like it's more akin to power metal at times than anything else.
I've always felt like a power metal element to Dream Theater. Like I've always heard parts and thought that could be on a power metal album
Yeah,
easily.
which I'm
And I
not.
know
I'm
that
not a fan of power metal. So there you go.
fair enough, but like I've always loved the quieter moments, and I know that James LeBrie has like a quite a breathy, soft kind of vocal for that sort of stuff.
Mhm.
Um, And all power to him as well for being able to overcome a throat injury in the 90s, because on the Awake tour, um, he had a virus or something that like completely fucked his vocal cords. So for a while, he was having a hard time singing. So
Oh, wow.
it
I didn't know that.
it's cool that he managed to like, kind of overcome that. But
Hmm.
yeah, I know that his vocal style is quite a divisive part of you know Dream Theater. That being said, you could probably say that for a lot of prog vocalists, to be fair. Um,
I mean, you literally hear that about Rush, like
yeah,
that. Like I can't argue with people because I love Geddy Lee, but if somebody says I like Rush, but I can't get into his vocals, I'd be like, look, you're not wrong. You like, it's one of those things that you're either get into it or you're annoyed by it. So
it's one of those things that as well. I think with exposure, you kind of warm up to people's vocals a little bit, where you're
sure.
like, oh yeah, I get what he's going for now.
Uh
Because
huh.
like I've had it before where I've seen like people react to Megadeth and be like, "Oh, these vocals, he's clearly not a trained singer." And then it kind of clicks for him that, "Oh, that's the point." His whole personality is, watch him, oh my God. Like, at that point, he kind of clicks for you where you're like, "Oh, I get this guy now."
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, overall, Dramatic Turn of Events is an album that I think is really good, but is one of those that I kind of forget about, where it's like, this is really good, but Images and Words just showed up, and I've got a hankering for some Learning to Live right now.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's that thing of when a band has so many albums, you're kind of spoilt for choice, and you end up, guessing to yourself, are there enough hours in the day for the amount of music I love anymore? Because I remember there was a time in my life where I'd be like, okay, today I'm gonna listen to Master of Puppets, Dirt by Alice in Chains, and Angel Dust by Faith No More.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the day, you'd be like, "Hey, mission accomplished." And nowadays, I'm like, I need everything on shuffle because I'm never gonna have enough time to be satisfied anymore. Because that's the curse of getting into music, is that you
Yeah.
keep getting into more of it. You
So
know?
that's interesting because I think about that all the time because there's older music that I eventually will get into. Like, I got into Judas Priest eventually. It took
Yeah,
me a little bit. And then you've got the stuff that I love that I always want to listen to. And even
yeah,
me, I'm always constantly listening to new shit too.
yeah.
So
Same.
there's so much music that it would make sense that a band like Dream Theater, my brain goes, look, we don't got time for this.
Yeah,
But it made me think of something. So there are fans of bands because there are all different kinds of people. There are
yeah,
people that don't really listen to music. There are people like us that listen to a shitload of it, and then there are people that are real selective with the music that they listen to. Um,
yeah,
and it's not because they don't care. It's just because they find the things they like, and then that's what they want. But I think it was there was a Rush documentary. I think it might have been the Time Stands Still documentary. And if I remember right, there was one particular fan who was like at the Rush convention and was a huge Rush fan. It was basically saying that she didn't listen to any other music except for Rush.
wow,
And I believe her. And so I feel like the best Dream Theater fans are probably those kind of people that, sure, maybe they have other bands that they listen to also, but the majority of what they do is listen to
yeah,
Dream Theater. And I almost feel like that's the only way that Dream Theater's music is successful. If you're
yeah,
willing to put in the time and the effort, then you reap the rewards.
yeah,
Whereas I've got so much on my plate. It's
yeah,
like
yeah.
I don't have the time or the bandwidth, as they would say, for all of the stuff that they are doing. And
I've, yeah. You finished what you were saying, but yeah, I've just got a little thing I was gonna add.
okay, no, but I really do think that that's a real struggle for us because we also do this where we
Yeah,
listen to a band discography in order to do some sort of a thoughtful discussion and ranking
yeah.
on
And in a way
top.
that's helpful, you know?
Yeah, and on top of all the other music that I want to listen to. That's why, like, when people ask me questions like, "Are you excited about the Super Bowl?" And I'm like, "What? I don't have any
Eh,
fucking time for
yeah.
sports." And they're like, "Oh, did you see Avengers: Infinity War?" I don't have any fucking time for Avengers. Like, I'm
Yeah.
just like, and so like even like because like my wife and I at least once a week will watch a movie, and we have like select television shows that we watch just in the
Yeah.
evenings. But the rest of my life is literally fucking music all the time when I'm working. And then other things that I do, YouTube, podcasts, my radio shows. Like it takes up so much time that sure I'll look at other people and I'm like, oh man, they're having a really nice time out there kicking the ball down the street, and I'm just like, but I don't have time for that.
Yeah.
I don't have any time.
Yeah.
It gets frustrating. Anyway, all right,
I,
go,
I've
what were you saying?
I've recently been crafting a playlist for myself on of all the CDs that I have ripped to my phone.
Uh huh.
And essentially what I've done is I've called it the cream of the crop, and only one song is allowed per album. So what I started doing was I just put the whole out. I put my entire music library on shuffle, and I
Uh-huh.
would like shuffle the next one. What's my favorite song from that album? Okay, Stone Temple Pilots, Plush. Okay, that's going in the cream of the crop playlist.
Uh-huh.
Toto debut album, Hold the Line. That one's going in there because I know I'll get the most value of each album by having at least one song in there that I'll land on. It's kind of like a roulette wheel that I
Yeah,
play
yeah,
with myself. Like every morning before I go to work, I'm like, right, fire out the playlist, press shuffle. Oh, I've not heard Thunder Kiss 65 in a while. Let's drive to work with that,
yeah,
or but it's one of those things that when you become so passionate and in deep about any given subject that you're not satisfied with an Enter Sandman anymore, or a Here
yeah,
I Go Again. You want to hear, the big song from the album that no one else seems to like, but you fucking love. And it shows up one day and you're like, oh my God, I haven't listened to this in fucking eons. I had that the other day
yeah,
with Wasp. They showed up with the Idol from the Crimson Idol, and I was like, I've got chills right now, and I haven't listened to this song in 6 years. What the fuck have I been doing with my life?
yeah. So I have like several different like playlists in Apple Music, and one
Yeah,
of them is literally just every album by like my top 10 favorite bands, and
yeah.
sometimes I just shuffle that. But that was a big reason that over the past couple years, I got really into Saint Anger, and it
Mm,
started because I have a shower speaker in my shower that's like a Bluetooth
me too.
speaker, and so I'll push shuffle some mornings, and I'll just go in there and whatever plays. And I just remember one morning I'm in the shower and fucking Invisible Kid comes on, which is like
Yep.
I probably my least favorite song on Saint Anger, but
Mm.
at that particular moment, I was just like, "Oh my god!" It really like made my morning hearing that song. And so then I became obsessed with like listening to Saint Anger, and I was just like, so it carried that feeling with me, and so it's just one of those things where it randomly had to have happened because just looking
Yeah,
at the album, I'm not going to go, I'm going to listen to Invisible Kid. It just so sometimes randomly that's why I have so much fun doing record roulette,
yeah,
which not only am I doing it on YouTube, but I one of my weekly radio shows is I literally just hit random item, whatever comes up from my collection. I have to choose one song from it and make an hour long playlist, and it's making me
nice.
listen to songs that maybe I didn't because I don't necessarily just pick the one I like the most. If it's like the first album that comes up, I might just pick the first song on the album to make it a good playlist. Or if
Yeah.
it's a song that's following a really fast one, the next album I might be like, oh, I'm going to choose this slower one. And so I end up
Mm.
putting this thing together where I listen to songs that like maybe I didn't give enough attention to or whatever. And But once again, that's just one portion of my life, because then I'm like,
Yeah.
oh wait, these two brand new albums just came out. I got to go listen to those this weekend. It's just God, it's so hard
Yeah.
doing this kind of shit. So, but hopefully, luckily, everyone seems to appreciate the shit that we go through for
Absolutely.
this little bit of entertainment.
Dude, like that's one of those things. You guys just got to see like an inner workings of our process, like behind the curtain thing. So yeah, essentially, it's true. You get to a certain point where it's a gift and a curse.
Mm-hmm.
Where
Yeah.
you know, it, I remember the days where I thought I was cool and edgy because I just started listening to Anthrax. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
and as a regular music listener, that would be pretty deep, right? But in terms of how deep the thrash metal iceberg goes,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
Anthrax are pretty surface level, compared to some of the stuff that, dude, there's some killer stuff out there that just is not lost to the annals of time, but is pretty deep cut as far as it goes,
Yeah.
you know?
There's a part of me that I kind of miss the sort of innocence, and I guess it's kind of it's forced on you. But I just go back to like 1992. I just got
Yeah.
my first CD player. I had 10 CDs or so, and I just remember being like, I have fucking 10 albums, and I was so happy. But like, there was no internet. So literally for
Yeah.
me, it was listening to the music that I owned or watching MTV or whatever. But my dogs are going crazy. Um,
Hey, we have a guest.
but yeah, at that point it was just 10 CDs. And there's something really beautiful about that, about just like, this is what I
Yeah.
have.
Mm.
But I have to admit, this shit you see behind me, these over 1,700 pieces of vinyl behind me,
Holy
um,
shit.
that brings me such joy just looking at the shelf. Like, I'll
Hmm.
come into my room, or while I'm working, because this is where I work every day, I'll just turn around sometimes and just look at it and go, man, I'm hashtag blessed, everybody. you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Absolutely. Yeah, that was a nice psychoanalysis
You
of
know
our
what? That might be
process.
how a really big Dream Theater fan looks at it. They turn around, they see these 15 albums packed full of all this shit, and they're like, hashtag blessed. You know?
Yeah. But yeah, that's I guess that's my number 11.
Okay.
Yeah.
My number 11 is the 2005 album Octavarium,
Okay.
their eighth album. So going into this, I remember listening to it and thinking to myself, this is the most straightforward Dream Theater I've ever heard. Like,
Mm.
it seems way more focused than any other album that they did. Now, you would think that that was a good thing, and it was to an extent, but it ended up just becoming a uh, a more, I don't know, segregated version of how I felt about all their other albums, where there would be a song where the whole song I'm like, this is a fucking great song. And then the next song,
Mm.
the whole song was me going, all right, can we skip this one? And then the next, so it is more straightforward, and I appreciate that, because I appreciate any band looking at something with a different approach, whatever brings that approach or whatever the difference is. I enjoy it. So I did enjoy it, but I think overall it ended up making it a less interesting album to me, because there were less moments where I was going, ooh, and it was more just like, okay, this is a pretty good song. Not really into
Mm.
this song. Pretty good song. So it ended up being like a more ho hum experience in a Dream Theater album, because there wasn't as much of a bombastic, like, oh, I wasn't expecting that. It's a lot more. I mean,
Mm.
there are some moments, but for the most part, it does seem pretty, when it comes to Dream Theater, simplified, and
Mm.
I just didn't find it as interesting. But I really appreciated that I got to that point where I went, oh, this is, it feels different. This album feels different for me. Um, so the feeling was good enough for me to, like, not put it super low, but it still is at number 11. It didn't make it top 10. So yeah, Octavarium.
Nice. Um, I remember now, while we're on the subject of Octavarium,
Mm-hmm.
I remember finding somewhere that there's like a. Let me see if I can find it. Octavarium Easter eggs.
Oh,
There's an entire like analysis of this album, and it's like really subtly um all the interesting facts. Is that the one? Oh shit. Damn, the old website I was looking for is now no longer with us as far as I'm aware. This is on
damn.
the fly research because
They
I remember
didn't.
the
They didn't
website.
pay. They didn't pay for the URL again or whatever.
Yeah, the website was awesome. Basically, the album breaks down into like sets of 8 and 5 or something, right?
Okay.
Now, and like there's little like things in the booklet of the album that point to like how things are structured and stuff, but this is one of those albums that has negative time on it, that has like you said, did you bring up like the negative time
On
thing
CDs. Yeah,
last
I
time
used to
on
love
CD?
that.
Yeah, so this has moments of that. Um,
But is that, did I hear those listening to it streaming? Did I hear all those
they're
moments?
they'll all be there, yeah, but
Okay, okay.
it's very subtle. But here we go. Here's the concept. Okay, so it's like a semi concept album. This is gonna be so fucking nerdy, right? When starting to work on what would become Octavarium, Mike Portnoy noted that it would be their eighth studio album and that they had recently released their fifth live album, Live at Budokan. The sequence mirrored the octave on a musical keyboard. Each octave contains 8 naturals and 5 accidentals. Portnoy suggested that they use the concept for an entire album. On the back of it, you see like a keyboard, like an
Yeah.
octave of a keyboard. When writing, the band delegated each song a different key. Sound effects were placed between songs to connect them. For example, The Root of All Evil, written in F minor, and the following track, The Answer Lies Within, written in G minor, were connected by a sound effect in the key of F sharp minor. So the album's lyrics and song titles featured references to this concept. Portnoy calls the titles The Root of All Evil, referring to the musical term root, and Octavarium, the octave of the octave. Like I say, this
Wow.
really, really cleverly structured stuff.
So I'm gonna go on record and say it sounds like it's probably more fun to be in Dream Theater than it is for me to listen to Dream Theater. Because that sounds fun. If I was in a band
Yeah,
with dudes that thought like that, I'd be like, hell yeah, do this shit. So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. It's a cool thing that that they structured an album
yeah.
around the idea of the octave on a keyboard, but there's like little references all over the album, and it's like a giant Easter egg
But
scavenger
you
hunt.
but you
That
see what I
album.
mean? It's fucking pointillism. So looking at the album
Yeah,
from this far away, it's a picture of a child, and then you zoom in, and it's all these little things that, like, you
yeah,
don't even fucking know, because the only way that I'm taking in these albums right now, it's from further away. So
yeah.
yeah.
Which I get, but I really like that one, so that one might not be in this episode. So
Oh shit. Okay.
yeah,
So
okay.
we made it to top 10 though.
Okay, so my number 10 is 2019's Distance Over Time.
Okay.
On the heels of The Astonishing, they got a bit more back to just doing a Dream Theater album, and it's a nice, much needed palate cleanser after the previous album's bloated concept of
Yeah.
2112, but way longer. Um, And honestly, this one sits at number 10 for me because I'm like, it's really good. I like the songs. I don't have a lot more to add other than Fall Into the Light has a really cool riff in it. Viper King, which is a bonus track, is really cool. But honestly, again, it's like you say, at this point, late stage Dream Theater is kind of like, yep,
Yeah.
saw this coming. It's cool. I like it because I'm a Dream Theater fan. But I'm just I found it satisfying,
Yeah.
but it's nothing that is gonna dethrone any of the albums that come above it for me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
all I can say about Distance Over Time is it's a quality set of songs for me as a Dream Theater fan. However, I'm like you with when bands get later in their discography and they're like, well, let's give them what we give them,
Yeah, yeah, and there,
and
and and to be fair, there are some bands that I don't mind that.
yeah, yeah,
What just comes to mind is Cannibal Corpse, very different band from Dream Theater, but you know what you're going to get from Cannibal Corpse. And I would even go so far as to say that Cannibal Corpse also has this pointillism kind of thing, where if you're not
yeah,
into if you're not into it, it looks like a fucking huge blob. You got to like pull in closer and see like, well,
yeah,
here's the differences between these songs and the 10 other albums before it, or
yeah, yeah.
So
You don't get it. This guy's being killed with a fork. This guy is being killed with a spoon. Like
this guy has been completely disemboweled.
this guy is in the process of being disemboweled.
This guy is just following somebody home and then killing them.
This guy has been followed home and killed. That was a fucking good set of episodes.
That was.
If you're listening to this and you haven't heard the Cannibal Corpse episodes we did, that's among some of the
It was
funniest
fun.
shit we've ever done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on because we got two. Well, I got two more to talk about. We're almost done with this episode. My number 10. I don't have a lot to say about this one either. Dream Theater, self-titled album from 2013.
Okay.
Their 12th album, and this, I think, I don't remember which. If this was, I think this may have been day 3 that I was on this album, but I just remember like really feeling fatigued and thinking to myself, it's so strange that such a talented band that makes such intricate and complicated music could feel like they're just repeating themselves over and over. Like it's a really bizarre thing. But this goes into what we were just talking about. I guarantee that if I was more of an all-in kind of person with Dream Theater, this album has its differences and its unique things and things they maybe hadn't done before at the time, but it really started to be like, at this point I was like, I don't remember what I've listened to, and I can't tell one album from the other except for the songs that I already knew, or for the most part it now become like a blur of Dream Theater stuff. And it's always the same responses. It's always, some things are great, some things I didn't like, and it's very well done. I don't want to repeat myself. I don't want to keep repeating myself, but that's all I could say about it is that I could not look at this album and go, this album's bad. Not at all. It's, but being honest as a music fan, I'm just like, this seems unnecessary. for me. For me, it was unnecessary. So that's my number 10.
Cool. That one is the album that's the first album that came out after I became a Dream Theater fan. So that one has a little bit of a near and dear spot for me that otherwise might have landed it a little lower. But
Sure.
I listened to it the other day and it was like, man, I remember sitting down at my kit the day I got this album and putting my headphones in listening through it and just playing along to it, just trying to, obviously some of the more mental sections being 15 years old, I'm
Yeah.
like, I'll just sit back and let this part happen, and then go back when something I can actually play
Yeah.
is going on. But a really cool performance I would recommend you watch is the Illumination Theory live performance, where they've got like the orchestra, because there's a kick-ass part in there that it's about 15 or so minutes in, where you're gonna be like, where you're gonna be like, this is why Eddie likes this. But like,
Okay.
one word, keytar.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Fucking love that. But yeah, that leaves us with
Number
my
9.
number 9. Number 9.
The last
And
the last album of this part 1 episode.
for moi.
Yeah.
For moi. Let's have a look here. When Dream and Day Unite. So
Okay. All right.
this one for me is up the top of the lower half, because I'm like, everybody else puts it at the bottom. I do not believe it deserves to be at the bottom, because I'm like, now come on guys, are we really gonna put the Netflix version of 2112 over a pretty concise and decent, albeit muddily produced 80s metal album?
So what is the consensus though? Why do a lot of people put it last? What about it is considered not that good?
Honestly, I think it's because it doesn't have James LaBrie on the vocals. That's it. Like, everybody's like, I think it comes from a mindset of the singer is the face of the band, and if there's one album with a different singer, it's like, fuck them,
No,
don't
that's like
subscribe to that.
I still get bent out of shape when people are all like, I'm a Faith No More fan. I don't like their first 2 albums. I'm like, fucking leave here right
Yeah.
now.
You're not a Faith No More fan. You're a Mike Patton
You're a
fan.
Mike Patton fan. Go away.
You know?
There's too many of you, and most of you are annoying. So, all right.
What do you think about this, Mike?
Ooh.
Nice little
audio
collage.
That being said, man, I love Mike Patton.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I fucking love the dude. Yeah, I'm a Patton fanboy. I can't lie. I eat up everything he does. He could do like Yoko Ono shit, and I'd be like, genius.
I'm not that big. I really do think that he's done some stuff that's not great, and I don't care for. But he has done some of my favorite music ever. So,
I will say, Faith No More, Bungle, and Phantomas, Dead Cross, Tomahawk, all cool stuff. Peeping Tom, love it.
I love that one.
Yeah, Peeping Tom.
Yeah,
Lovage, that stuff too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, nice. We managed to bring
the soundtrack for that movie where Home Dude can't let his heart rate go below a certain thing. What movie is that? Crank. He did this. I think he did the soundtrack for Crank too.
Nice.
Anyway, yeah,
love that.
The Mike Patton.
But yeah, little. That's something we have to do at some point. We need to do like a Patton episode.
Well, didn't we do? We did. We did Faith No More, and we did Bungle and Bungle. What else did we do?
That's it. We've done Faith No More and we've done Bungle, but we need to do some of his other stuff as well, because there's so much of it. But I think you know what would be a really difficult episode if we did a slashed and mashed where we put together a Mike Patton's greatest hits album where we had all of that music to choose from, but maybe had to narrow it down to like 12 tracks, something like that. Dude, that'd be that'd be a challenge. Yeah. And the best part about that is it's all so diverse that you would have like a Mike Patton album,
Yeah,
like, like,
essentially, yeah,
it wouldn't be off the cards, you know.
yeah.
But yeah, like I was saying, When Dream and Day Unite,
Hmm.
I think this album's biggest problem is not that it sounds 80s, but it sounds muddy for an 80s album.
Yeah.
Sonically, I think the vocals are really good. I think Charlie Dominici does a good job with the vocals. Uh, I just I just think they came into their own later on, but there are
And
several of the
they
songs.
didn't kick him out. He quit, right? Like it wasn't like they weren't happy with him. I think I read that he
I
quit.
They had a lot of issues on this album's tour, and that like the label
Oh,
kind of fucked them, if I remember right. It wasn't until Images and Words where they got kind of a second wind,
yeah.
like because they could have been a band that did this one album and then got boned in the butt by the label and never did anything again. However, Images and Words happened because they were basically given a second chance and they fucking hit it out of the park.
Hmm.
With that, A Fortune in Lies is an excellent opener. I love it. Lots of cool parts. Status Seeker is the best Rush song Rush didn't write. That I fucking love. I love Status Seeker, dude. Like, I remember the first time I heard it. That chorus is excellent. Nothing is sacred. You draw the bottom line with a dollar sign. Like, just those really cool parts there. It's a full blown. It's the last song that was written for the album sessions, and it
Hmm.
definitely sounds like right. We need a hit, and if anything off of this album was going to be a hit at the time, it would have been that.
Yeah.
But Yitzy Jam, which is a great instrumental, is Majesty spelt backwards, and that is the former name of Dream Theater. They used to be called Majesty before they became Dream Theater,
Oh,
and that's just a fun little reference. That's why
Dream
they're
Theater is a much better name, in my opinion.
yeah yeah, which leaves Majesty ripe for the taking. So it's mine now.
I'm pretty sure
But
they
yeah,
probably changed it because there was already about 20 bands called Majesty.
yeah, probably. But yeah, the Killing Hand. Tell me you heard Operation Mindcrime without telling me you heard Operation Mindcrime, because there
Oh yeah,
are
there was little tinges of Queensryche in there too. Yeah,
bam 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 bam
yeah,
bam like those little chords in there just made me think, okay, okay. Light Fuse and Getaway is a cool song. Afterlife is a great song. That one still gets played to this day. The Ones Who Helped to Set the Sun, cool stuff, and Only a Matter of Time is a fittingly majestic ending for a band formerly known as Majesty. C track 3.
Oh.
Mic drop. But
All right.
yeah, that's we have entered the realm. I would say this is the crossing point where the albums go from I like them to I'm invested heavily in this.
Okay.
So yeah.
I'm gonna do
This is
my
where I
number
flip
nine.
from
Yeah.
I was gonna say this is where I flip from I agree with what you're saying to an extent of, and now I'm like, nah, I fucking love this. I'm
Yeah.
gonna go to
Yeah.
war,
Okay.
war for this shit.
Okay. But I'm gonna go. I'm gonna do this real quick because I don't have a lot to say about it because it's really
Okay.
my. I feel like my ranking is arbitrary at best because like I don't remember so much of what it was that I listened to. But for some reason, number 9 was Black Clouds and Silver Linings from 2009.
Okay.
It's their 10th album, so it was the 10th one I listened to, and I the only thing I can say is that it was just around that section where I really just started to get fatigued and everything just sort of was blurry, and I was having the same reactions to everything they were doing, some good, some bad, and I just was like, I think probably around that point I started to get really nervous because I was just like, is this episode going to be a huge waste of time because I have nothing to bring to the table? But then I started to say, oh, but no, maybe I can be like the what Eddie can play off of. I'll be the dude like, fuck this, and you'll be the one to be like, let me explain to you why this is great. So
Mhm.
I was like, all right, maybe that's going to be me. I don't normally play that character, but in this particular one, I will. But I literally don't remember that album. Do you know what I'm gonna now that we've come to the end of this, I'm gonna promise something. If you've made it this far and you're a Dream Theater fan, I'm gonna promise you something. Because if I remember right, we have to take next week off because Eddie's band is playing a festival. Am I right about that? Do I remember correctly?
I am. I am indeed.
All right, so there's gonna be a 2 week gap. I promise to everyone out there, I will go back and listen to my top 8 albums at least one more time, all the way through,
Okay.
because I want to have more to say. Maybe I will have more to say. I don't know, but I feel like this is a great band. It just isn't connecting with me, but maybe some part of it can connect with me. I don't
Hmm.
know, but I'm going to do that because I feel like it deserves it. They put so much work into this fucking music for me to be like, some of it's good, some of it's bad. It's too long. And that's, Dream Theater fans, if you're even still here and you're not a normal viewer of our shit or listener of our shit, if I haven't annoyed the fuck out of you, then that just means that you're a really good person. And thank you for
Hmm.
being here. You're what we call a peanut butter platypus. If you make it all the way through and you stick it out, that's what, because we do all our episodes are yes, on our mug, which I got mine too. It says peanut butter
Eh.
platypus on one side. You can get these mugs on my YouTube store in the bottom of the thingy, whatever, on Spread Shop. It doesn't matter. If you're in the podcast world, it's you have to actually go do things. But yeah, so I'm gonna listen to those other albums again, and I don't know what that's going to bring for me, but I owe them that much, and the fact that we have the time, I'm going to do that. So
I think you showing an interest in wanting to understand it is enough. You know, that's shows you're a cool guy. I
I'm
think.
just wanting to. Whenever a band is a big deal, I want to connect with it in some way.
Yeah.
It's like very recently, because when that the band Ghost first started out, I was really into their first album,
Yeah.
and then very quickly I kind of just fell off, and I was like, I'm not interested in this. And then their newest album came out, and because I do like these radio shows now, and I listen to a lot of other people's stuff, they keep peppering in songs from the most recent album, and it got to the point where I finally just went, I really like these songs.
Yeah. Yeah.
and so
Yeah.
and so that's what I want to do with Dream Theater, is that I want to get to some sort of point where I hear something that like kicks down the door, or you know opens up my mind,
Yeah.
and so it may not happen, because like I said, there's a whole lot of music out there. But yeah, you're right. I respect it enough, especially when it's something that you really like. I respect it enough to come at it from like, it deserves a little bit more from me. So
I think as well, something I would, bear in mind is the kind of the ingredients I tend to think of with Dream Theater is if you took Metallica, Toto, Rush, and Yes, threw them in a blender, this is what you get. Like, some would argue how the fuck Toto got in there, and all of those people know Africa, and that's it, right? Trust me, if you're a fan of Dream Theater and you don't know Toto, check out Toto, right?
yeah.
They have so much cool, weirdly proggy stuff for how accessible it is. Like
Mhm.
it's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I've been listening to a lot of Toto today, so
That's a
that's
good. I mean, that's a good. All of those things. Yeah, I would put all of those bands into. I'd even throw in, oddly enough, a little bit of Iron Maiden in there too.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, I can hear that.
but
Especially
yeah,
song length wise lately.
yeah. Um, but yeah, so that's the end of part one of Dream Theater.
Yes.
And we'll be back in 2 weeks with part two, and that'll be our top eight Dream Theater
Yes.
albums, and we'll see what happens. It'll be fascinating to find out. But do you got any parting words for this episode?
I was gonna say to anyone who hasn't heard it yet, go check out my band's song "Sick" on all streaming platforms. As far as I know, it's on Spotify, Apple Music. We're called Sage, and the song's called "Sick." If you type in both of those, it will come up with a photo of us looking or trying to look a lot like a early '90s promo shot of Alice in Chains. Uh, and yeah, you see me in the middle wearing a dirt shirt and a pair of sunglasses. So yeah, stood next to a railway fence with a cool orangey saturated hue over it. We look badass.
Yeah.
Um, because we recently had a gig and someone in the audience who we didn't ask to be there was kind enough to show up on the merit of our song and word of mouth
Uh
and
huh.
left a nice little review.
Oh,
So
nice.
I just want to
Do it.
do a
Yeah.
shout out to Tom Joyce if you are listening to this. Thank you for the glowing review that you gave us.
What? Read it. Read it. What did he say? What did he say?
Okay,
We got time.
so Sage played an awesome gig at JJ's bar in Liscard last night. Some proper good guitar skills, complemented with solid bass playing, all held together with some great technical drumming. Biggest
Oh,
compliment I've ever fucking had as a drummer.
yeah.
When all I think to myself is, what would Sean Kinney do?
Yeah.
um, yeah, so it's nice to hear some cover songs, but their original songs are where it's at. Their song "Sick" is a belter. Can imagine a big crowd all shouting "Sick" in unison at a festival somewhere in the future. Shame it's the only song they have on Spotify. Hey, I'm trying to nail down the members to finish their parts. I'm done. I'm sure they'll have more soon though. Worth putting in the effort to go see them. So if you get a chance to check them out, audio plugs advised. It's loud, but in a good way. Looking forward to seeing them again. Thanks to Sage.
Nice.
Bosh.
Nice.
So
That is great.
it
Yeah.
yeah, it's nice to hear that, and to know it was someone who, it's the first time I've looked into a crowd and been like, oh, that guy knows who we are,
Yeah.
So,
That's
so it's a
better than any.
nice.
That's better than any review my band's ever got. My band, the good reviews for my band were all like, "Yeah, there was a band that played, and there was a special on Jaeger bombs. That was pretty good."
What one of the most brutal things I've ever felt playing in a band was I used to be in this cover band before COVID, and the pandemic put a pretty swift end to that. But we were, me and a few friends were doing it for a couple years, making some money, playing pubs around the Falmouth area and that.
Mhm.
And that was when I was in uni. Well, basically, I remember one time we played a pub in Falmouth called the Prince of Wales, and we were in there playing to we were basically playing to four people, one of which was an old dude, quite obviously watching the football on the TV.
Yeah.
Another was a crackhead and his crackhead wife. And when I say crackhead, I'm not being mean. I mean literal no teeth. Knocked the PA over, which landed on me, went through my kit. I literally grabbed it like a fucking superhero. He got quickly ordered out, which then left about
Left
two
two
people
people.
left. Yeah. And the most brutal part was I saw a dude get up at the end of the song and went, "Yes!" Only to realize that he was cheering because his team scored a goal in the
Oh
football.
man,
Yeah, I was like,
that's
oh
awesome.
man. We made awkward eye contact during that, and it's it's just one of the most funny images I have in my mind, feeling like, you know what? Maybe we played Tie Your Mother Down really well, and then, oh, no, man, you scored. Uh, yeah. So yeah,
Well,
that's some funny little
pay,
anecdotes. Those are
pay,
some
paying your dues. That's what they call that.
absolutely, yeah.
All right,
So with
cool.
that,
Well, On that note, let's get the fuck out of here. Thanks everybody for listening and or watching. Like I said, we'll be back in 2 weeks. And yeah, I don't have anything else to add. We've given you enough. Peanut
Yeah.
butter platypus. Thank you for listening. And as usual, I'm going to throw it over to my good man Eddie motherfucking Sparxx to take us out.
We've given you a couple Dream Theater songs worth of of time.
Yeah.
Cool. Later, dude.
All right. Bye, everybody.